Today on Sounds Like a Drum, we're going to go a little left of center. Not necessarily your normal, raw, acoustically transparent drum sounds, but today a little bit more experimental, some post-process stuff, and some fun treatments around the kit. So let's get into it. This sort of thing is right up my alley, and it's one of the approaches I love to take when I'm looking to just build on some creativity and even experiment from a compositional standpoint. Oftentimes as drummers, we're told that we need to serve the song. We are there to be a backbone, to be a supporting structure, use whatever metaphor you'd like to here. There's nothing wrong with that. That's all well and good. But if you're trying to expand your creativity and search for some new sounds, try some different things, push yourself a little bit, sometimes you need to start with a drums forward approach. With that in mind, I prepared the kit with a bunch of different sounds based on what I was kind of hearing in my head as I was imagining what today's episode was going to be about. We'll get into all the individual specifics, but first, let's hear the fully mixed version of this first general groove idea. I've been listening to a lot more world music as of late, and a lot of Turkish style percussion has come into play. I borrowed some inspiration from that and started incorporating those sounds and some treatments into the setup here to create a little bit more of a percussion ensemble rather than a traditional drum set. I'm going to do a rundown of all the different treatments that were done to the individual instruments in groups here, so bear with me. First up on this side of the kit, we've got the hi-hats, some stacks, and a little bit of a closed hat system going here. Let's hear the mixed versions of each of these demonstrated together, and then I'm going to explain what was done specifically, and you'll get to hear the raw audio of each of them individually. With the hi-hats, there's not really anything special going on here. This is the set of hi-hats that I've been using in a lot of our recent episodes. It's a custom top hi-hat that was modified by our friend Jesse Simpson, and then the bottom is actually a Zildjian quick beat hi-hat top. While I was playing, I set the clutch pretty high because I wanted to be able to get some splashes in for some of the other grooves that I was playing around with, and wanted there to be a nice balance so that when I was depressing the pedal, the left pedal was the same as what my right foot was feeling on the bass drum pedal. Directly in front of me, we've got a little bit of an expensive stack setup here. On the bottom is a Zildjian Oriental trash cymbal, and then above that, I've got a Zildjian K hybrid splash. And then on top of that, I've got a Zildjian A custom EFX splash. And as if that weren't enough, I've got one of Greg Keplinger's Ching rings on top. I know that that's a really expensive combination of cymbals to have stacked on top of each other, but when you've got them around, use them, right? So today was a fun experiment to be able to combine these, and I like that you get a nice kind of washy stack sound, but at the same time you can play right on the top and it's a little bit more staccato, but you get a little bit of the jingle off of that ching ring. Now for the closed hat setup to the left of that, we've got a little bit of a cut down Zildjian splash. I believe this is right in the neighborhood of a 6-inch splash now, but that's not what it started out as. That's on top of a prototype Zildjian bell. And I don't know, I think they may have released this at some point in time or a variation on this recently, but this is a very, very thick bell. It's fun to get sort of a closed hat stack sort of sound when you're playing on the top, but if you contact the bell edge on the bottom there, you end up getting much more of a definitive bell sort of sound, which is fun for accents. I think of it kind of like playing on the top of a cowbell versus on the edge of it. Speaking of bells, over here on top of the ride cymbal, I've got a custom cut down bell that I made, my gosh, probably a good 20, 25 years ago. And this was made, as I recall, out of an old pair of Zildjian marching crash cymbals. And it was a cracked pair, and I cut out the center bell, and it was just thick enough. It had the perfect sound and resonance as a bell on its own. The ride cymbal is the trusty old A clone that Jesse Simpson created for us a long time ago now. And I decided I wanted it to be a little drier, so I took a Evans E-ring. And this E-ring is just draped across the cymbal, muffling it to get a little bit of a drier sound overall. For the snare drum, not really anything crazy going on here right now. I've got it tuned up pretty much in a medium range and just wanted to be able to get a nice open tone out of it with the snares turned off for this particular demo. For the floor tom, I've taken a piece of bandana that I usually use for muffling one of the snare drums behind me on the rack here, and I took a binder clip and just attached it over onto the hoop. So you've got that draping across, creating a little bit of a gate effect and doing just a little bit of natural muffling to it. From a tuning standpoint, I'm experimenting with something that's going to be featured in a later episode, but the reso is significantly higher in pitch than the batter. In fact, the reso is an octave above the batter right now. We'll get into that in a future episode. And for the bass drum, I really wanted this to be ultra staccato, thumpy, not so much boomy. The idea was it was going to be impactful, there, and then gone. I've got a pillow inside the bass drum. It's touching both the batter head and the reso head, and it creates a really nice, powerful sound. Let's go ahead and listen to a dry mix, just raw audio, into the final mixed version of that same groove from earlier using this setup. So you can hear that there's definitely some world music, and if you're a fan of such things, some Turkish influence here. We've got a little bit of a Zills, Rick kind of thing, sort of frame drum sound coming from the snare drum, maybe a little bit of a darbuka vibe. Then there's also that deeper sound, that low tone coming out of the floor tom. This was just a fun thing to mess around with and kind of create like a groove melting pot of some different bits of inspiration, maybe some different cultures, pulling from different places, and just seeing what you come up with. There really are no rules here. Now, let's go ahead and demonstrate with a different groove using the same setup, same treatments, same mix. This stuff was also a little bit of a challenge to play. I had to spend some time with it after I came up with the idea, and at the time that I filmed this, it's still a little raw. I'll have to sit with it a little bit more before it gets to the point where it feels like it grooves. But this is a fun thing to do when you're searching for inspiration, and if you're a multi-instrumentalist, this is a great way to start compositional ideas. Again, earlier on in the episode, I mentioned the idea that people tend to think of drums as something that's there to just serve the song, that we need to just be a backbone, provide a backbeat, that sort of thing. But there's no reason why, when you're getting creative with this sort of stuff, you can't start out with the drums and percussion and then build upon a compositional idea from there. When I was messing around with these sounds and coming up with the treatment for each of the drums and cymbals, I was very much thinking what I wanted the final mixed version to be like. So if you've been listening to that raw acoustic version and thinking, man, that really doesn't sound great, the mix is doing a lot of heavy lifting here, well, that was the idea. In the end, I wanted the mixed version to sound like it does. So if you start out with the perception or the general idea of a finished sound in mind, you'll be able to get there much more easily. In this case, I knew that I wasn't going to just be relying on acoustic, transparent, raw audio here, but instead I was going to do a little bit of a mix because I'm also working on some pieces based on this particular percussion setup. Now, of course, just because you're experimenting with things and have all sorts of funky treatments here doesn't mean that you can't play traditional backbeats or whatever you might normally play if you're not getting into much more of an experimental kind of vibe. I really encourage bouncing back and forth between these things. Try different stuff out. Push yourself beyond your normal playing scenario. I really do like to think of this stuff as a sort of creative practice. You know, we talk often about all of the physical manifestations of practice and building up muscle memory and the capability of playing different polyrhythms and things like that, but we have to stretch our creative muscles as well. And sometimes this stuff isn't going to be ready for prime time. It's not necessarily going to be the finished version that ends up in a song or a piece or whatever it may be. But it's an opportunity to try stuff out, see what works, see what doesn't, and just go from there. I know this was a different format of an episode and a different sort of approach in general, but if you're interested in us doing more of these in the future, please do let us know in the comments below. We'd love to experiment with some more of this stuff and film it and record it for you to check out, maybe find some inspiration in, and try this sort of thing out on your own. We'd love to hear from you in the comments as to which of these sounds you found most interesting. Maybe there was something that you didn't like at all, or something that you loved, maybe something that you want to adopt for yourself and try out. Let us know, and we look forward to the next episode.